had lost control after being hit by a strange energy storm. With no other option, he aimed for the nearest planet on his screen, Verderia. He didn't know much about it, only that it was labeled restricted on the star maps. But right now, he didn't care. Survival came first. The small escape craft crashed hard into the thick green jungle. Branches tore at the metal and dirt flew as the ship skidded to a stop. Everything went quiet. Ryan slowly opened his eyes, his heart still racing. He was alive. The hatch creaked open. Warm, humid air rushed in. Tall trees with glowing blue fruits towered overhead. Strange bird-like creatures flew between the branches. Ryan climbed out, checking his suit and gear. The ship was beyond repair. He needed help. Food, water, shelter. As he moved through the jungle, he marked his path with small lights. His boots sank slightly into the mossy ground. The deeper he went, the more he noticed signs of life. Paths worn smooth, carved stones, with symbols, and finally, voices. He hid behind a large plant with red leaves. In a clearing ahead, he saw them, green-skinned humanoids in golden armor. Their ears were slightly pointed, their eyes bright like emeralds. They spoke in a language he couldn't understand. Suddenly, one of them pointed directly at him. He turned to run, but it was too late. A net launched from a tube struck him in the chest. He fell, tangled and stunned. They surrounded him with weapons drawn. One of them spoke in a deep, commanding voice. "Human, you have entered forbidden royal ground. The punishment is death." Ryan raised his hands. "Wait. I didn't mean to come here. My ship crashed." They didn't care. They bound his hands and pulled him toward a transport craft. The last thing he saw before being pushed inside was a giant statue of a tall alien woman wearing a crown, her hands open in warning. The Palace of Verdaria was both beautiful and terrifying. Its walls were made of green crystal, glowing faintly from within. Soldiers lined the halls. Ryan was forced to his knees in a grand chamber where the council sat in tall silver chairs. At the center sat the king, old, wise-looking, and unmoved by Ryan's presence. To his right stood the princess, her skin shimmering like polished jade. Her eyes held power and curiosity. "Outsider," the king said through a translator. "You have trespassed on sacred land. You were warned in the stars. The punishment is death." Ryan's stomach dropped. He tried to explain again, but no one listened. The guards prepared to take him away, but then the princess raised her hand. "Father," she said calmly. "Let me speak." The king frowned but nodded. The princess stood and walked toward Ryan. She looked down at him, not with hate but with interest. "You are human?" she asked. Ryan nodded. "Yes. I swear I meant no harm." She tilted her head. "Your kind once stood beside ours, long ago. But that time is gone, now you stand alone." He didn't understand what she meant. Then she turned to the council and said something that made everyone gasp. "I will marry the human." Silence filled the room. Ryan blinked. "Wait, what?" The king stood in shock. "Sailari, you cannot be serious." She looked back at Ryan. "If I take him as my husband, the law will spare his life. I choose this." Ryan stared at her. A beautiful alien princess just offered to marry him. To save him? He was too stunned to speak. The king finally sighed. "The law is the law. If you marry him, he cannot be executed." Then he looked at Ryan. "Human, your choice is simple. Marry the princess, or be executed at sunrise." Ryan's mouth went dry. This wasn't a dream. It wasn't a joke. He had only one choice. "I accept," he said softly. The room erupted, in murmurs. Later that night, Ryan sat in a golden room with a bed larger than any he had ever seen. 2 guards stood at the door. He wasn't free, but he was alive. He stared at his hands, trying to understand what just happened. A few hours ago, he was crashing on a strange world. Now he was set to marry a green alien princess. The door opened. Princess Sayalari entered, her expression calm. "I needed to speak with you before the ceremony tomorrow," she said. Ryan stood. "Why did you do this? You don't even know me." She walked to the window, looking out over her city. "Because my people are bound by ancient law. The princess must marry someone not of this world to claim her throne. But no outsiders ever come here anymore. You were the first in many years." Ryan nodded slowly. "So I'm just part of the law?" "At first, yes," she said. "But you are different. You didn't beg, you didn't lie, and I felt something when I looked at you." He was quiet for a moment. "I just want to survive. But if this is what it takes, I'll respect your world. I'll do my best." She turned and smiled faintly. "Then we both begin a new chapter. Let us see where it leads." The next morning, Ryan stood in front of a long mirror, wearing ceremonial clothes made of soft gold and deep green fabric. The outfit was strange to him, but it felt light and comfortable. Two royal servants carefully adjusted the collar and checked every detail. He still couldn't believe what was happening. Marrying an alien princess. This has to be a dream, Ryan muttered. The servant beside him smiled. "It is real, outsider. And today, you become one of us." The words made Ryan nervous. What if this was all just a trick? What if they were only keeping him alive for the ceremony, and something worse waited after? The palace courtyard was filled with thousands of Verdari citizens. Green banners waved in the air. Flowers floated in small pools around the garden. Soft music played from crystal instruments. Everyone waited to witness a moment no one had seen in 100 years. A royal marriage with an outsider. Princess Sayalari stood tall under the golden archway, wearing a long, flowing dress that sparkled like the jungle leaves in sunlight. Her expression was calm, but Ryan could tell there was something behind her eyes, something heavy. He walked slowly toward her as the crowd went quiet. They stood side by side as the elder priest began the ceremony. In unity, the future survives. "In choice, a new path opens," the priest said. Salari looked at Ryan and placed a small glowing ring on his finger. He did the same for her. The ring felt warm, like it had its own energy. "By the laws of Verdaria, you are now bonded. May this bond protect both our worlds." The crowd clapped. Trumpets sounded. Flowers were tossed in the air. But in that moment, Ryan didn't feel happy. He felt confused. Salari leaned close to him and whispered, "Tonight we must talk. There are things you don't know." Later that evening, Ryan sat in his new chamber inside the palace. It was larger than his entire apartment back on Earth. The walls had moving patterns like vines, and soft lights floated near the ceiling. The bed was covered in green silk, and strange fruit sat in bowls near the windows. He couldn't sleep. His mind was full of questions. Why him? Why now? What did the princess mean when she said things he didn't know? A soft knock came at the door. He opened it to find Princess Sailari standing there alone. "Can we speak?" she asked. "Of course." She walked in and sat near the window, looking at the stars. Ryan joined her, and they sat in silence for a moment. "There is something I must tell you," she said finally. "Something important." Ryan nodded. "I'm listening." Sayalari took a deep breath. "Our empire is not as strong as it looks. The Verdari Council only allowed this marriage because they are desperate. Long ago, our people made a deal with ancient powers, forces beyond our world. The law says our princess must bond with someone not born here, or we lose protection." "Protection from what?" Ryan asked. "From the ones who sleep beneath the ground," she said softly. "Beings we cannot fight. Beings that once destroyed half our world." Ryan frowned. "So, marrying me keeps those things away?" She nodded. "The law is old, but the fear is still real. They believe the bond awakens something in the planet, a force that keeps the darkness sealed." Ryan stared at her. "So this isn't just about saving me. It's about saving everyone." "Yes," she said. "And I didn't choose you, by chance." I felt something when you looked at me. You weren't afraid. You respected life, even in the jungle. That matters to our people." Ryan looked down at the glowing ring on his finger. "And if I had said no, we would have all paid the price," Sayalari said quietly. Outside the palace in the lower city, not everyone celebrated the marriage. In a dark hall lit by red crystals, a group of shadowy figures gathered. "He is a human," one of them spat. "He does not belong on our throne." "The people cheer now," another said. "But when the truth is known, they will turn." A tall figure in a black cloak stepped forward. His eyes burned like fire. "We must not let this bond grow stronger. If the outsider lives, the old law remains, but if he falls, the law breaks." They began to plan. Back in the royal garden, Ryan followed Sayalari as she led him to a hidden chamber beneath a tree with glowing roots. She opened a stone door that slid aside with a hum. Inside was a room filled with old technology. Strange symbols and a soft green light at its center. "This is the heart chamber," Sayalari explained. "It connects to the planet itself. Every ruler must bond here with their partner to complete the union." Ryan stepped closer. The light reached out to him, brushing his skin like a gentle breeze. He felt something stir inside. A strange warmth, like a memory that wasn't his. "This place remembers," Sayalari said. "It will accept you if your heart is true." He looked at her. "And if it doesn't?" "It won't harm you," she said, "but the people will know, and they will turn against us." Ryan took a deep breath, then placed his hand on the green light. It pulsed. Soft at first, then stronger. The walls lit up with symbols, and a soft hum filled the air. The vines above glowed brighter. Sayalari's eyes widened. "It accepted you." A tear rolled down her cheek. "You really are the one." But far away, the rebel group prepared their next move. "Then we strike tomorrow," the cloaked leader growled. "The human dies before he changes everything." The next morning, the sun rose over the shining green towers of Verdaria. Everything looked peaceful on the outside. Birds flew through the warm sky. Children laughed in the market streets. The royal banners waved gently in the wind. But inside, the palace, danger was growing. Ryan stood with Princess Sayalari on the balcony. Below, citizens gathered to greet their new prince with cheers and flowers. It was a tradition after the bonding, an open greeting to show unity between ruler and people. "They don't hate me," Ryan said, surprised. "They want peace," Sayalari replied. "But peace is always fragile. Some only pretend to smile." She looked toward the outer wall of the city. Her voice dropped. "There are those who believe you are a threat, that a human can never rule beside me." Ryan nodded. "I felt it yesterday. Some guards wouldn't even look at me." Sayalari gave him a serious look. "They won't stop with looks. You need to be careful. You may have passed the heart chamber test, but to some, you'll never belong." Later that day, Ryan was taken to a training yard. Captain Kolar, a large Verdari warrior with a long scar across his cheek, waited with a group of soldiers. "You are the princess's bondmate," Kolar said, his tone cold. "But if you want to walk beside her, you must know how to defend her." Ryan raised his hands. "I'm not a soldier, I'm an engineer." "Then you'd better learn fast," Kolar replied. "The jungle doesn't care what your title is. Neither do our enemies." He threw a practice weapon at Ryan's feet. Ryan picked it up. It was light, almost like a stick, but powered with strange energy at the tip. Kolar stepped forward and attacked. Ryan barely blocked the strike in time. Sparks flew. The next hour was hard. Ryan was pushed, struck, and knocked down more than once, but every time he got back up. Kolar raised an eyebrow. "You don't quit." Ryan smiled, out of breath. "Humans are good at that." That night, a messenger arrived in secret. Sayalari received the message while alone in the throne room. Her face turned pale as she read it. She rushed to Ryan's chamber and showed him the small scroll. "Rebel forces have entered the lower city. Target the human prince. Act now." Ryan read it twice. They're coming for me? Sayalari nodded. They won't just stop at you. They want the throne. If you fall, our bond breaks. The treaty ends. The darkness below awakens. Ryan's heart pounded. What do we do? She looked at him seriously. We fight. Together. An hour later, the palace was sealed. Guards stood at every door. Secret pathways were activated beneath the palace floors. Ryan and Sayalari stood in a hidden control room beneath the main hall. Screens showed movement in the city. Rebel troops dressed in black armor had begun to spread. Captain Kohler arrived, sword drawn. They've already taken the east gate. We're holding them at the bridge, but not for long. Ryan stepped forward. Can I help? You're not trained, Kohler said flatly. He doesn't need to be, Sayalari said. He has the heart's bond. Give him the Verdari core blade. Kohler stared at her. That weapon is only used by those chosen by the planet itself. He passed the test. It will respond to him. Kohler nodded and left quickly. Moments later, he returned with a long case. Inside was a beautiful green blade. It shimmered like water but felt solid in Ryan's hands. As he held it, the blade lit up, alive with power. Kohler looked shocked. It accepted him. Ryan felt a strange connection to it, like it understood him, like it was waiting for him all along. The battle began before dawn. The rebels attacked the palace walls with energy bombs and climbing machines. Guards fought back, but the enemy was strong and full of anger. Ryan and Sayalari joined the defense near the main gate. She wore armor shaped like leaves and carried a glowing staff. Ryan had the core blade in his hand and a small shield on his arm. They fought side by side. A rebel charged at Sayalari. Ryan blocked the strike, twisted, and sent the enemy flying with a sweep of his blade. More came. Ryan fought hard, not like a warrior, but like someone who refused to lose. Every move was fast, smart, and brave. He used broken shields as traps, redirected enemy fire with metal pieces, and protected Sayalari at every step. Even the guards, who once doubted him, now looked at him with respect. He's not just surviving, one whispered. He's leading. In the heat of battle, Ryan faced the rebel leader, a tall figure in dark armor with burning red eyes. You don't belong here, human, the leader growled. Leave or die. Ryan stood tall. I didn't come to rule, I came to protect. And I won't run. They fought. The enemy was fast, strong. But Ryan used the core blade's power and his earthborn instincts. He dodged, struck, defended, and finally knocked the leader's weapon from his hand. The rebel fell back, defeated. Sayalari stepped forward, her staff raised. Yield, she said. The rebel stared at her and slowly dropped to his knees. The fight was over. As the sun rose, the people gathered once again. This time they chanted Ryan's name, not as a stranger, not as a threat, but as their prince. Sayalari stood beside him on the palace steps. You were brave today, she said. You protected my people like your own. Ryan looked at her. They are my people now. She smiled gently. Then perhaps this bond is more than law. He smiled back. Maybe it's fate. For the first time since arriving on Verdaria, Ryan felt truly accepted. The people no longer whispered behind his back. They no longer stared with doubt. Instead, they nodded with respect, bowed as he passed, and even smiled. Some young Verdari. Children followed him through the palace gardens, calling him Stormblade, a nickname they gave him after he fought off the rebel leader with the glowing Verdari core blade. But Ryan didn't feel like a hero. He felt like someone standing in the calm before a bigger storm. Princess Sayalari noticed his quiet mood as they sat in the crystal tower that overlooked the entire city. You are troubled, she said softly, offering him a fruit drink from a floating tray. Ryan took it with a thankful nod. I just have this feeling, like something worse is coming. Sayalari looked at him with seriousness. That feeling may not be wrong. The rebellion failed to break us, but their actions, may have caused something much worse. Ryan looked at her. Worse than war? She nodded slowly. Yes. Beneath Verdaria, something ancient stirs. The law that protects us, the bond between the royal bloodline and an outsider, was never just about peace. It was about containment. Later that day, Ryan followed Sailari to the Chamber of Roots, a massive underground hall hidden deep below, the palace. Vines glowed faintly along the walls and the air smelled of old earth and electricity. This place connects to the planet's core, Sailari explained. Long ago, our ancestors made a deal with the living world. In return for peace, they promised that one of royal blood would always bind themselves to one not born of Verdaria. If the bond breaks, the earth awakens. Ryan frowned. Awakens into what? She hesitated, then placed her hand on a glowing panel. Suddenly, the ground trembled. A holographic image appeared in the air, showing giant creatures covered in rock and vines breaking free from deep tunnels. They destroyed cities, swallowed forests, and crushed everything in their path. These are the Eorith, she said, ancient guardians, but when unbound they become destroyers. They sleep now, but we felt one of them shift during the rebellion. Ryan stepped back. You think they'll rise again? They will, Sailari said quietly, unless we act now. That evening, the Royal Council gathered. Sailari stood beside Ryan as she explained the danger. Some council members panicked. Others argued that the ancient stories were myths. Ryan stepped forward. I've seen strange things across many worlds. I don't know everything about your history, but I know this. We shouldn't wait for monsters to prove they're real. Kohler stood beside him. The core blade sensed movement below. It hums with warning. That has never happened before. Finally, the king nodded. Then we prepare. Let the royal bond be completed fully. Let the world know we are united. That night, a sacred ceremony took place in the Moonlight Temple, an ancient place hidden deep in the jungle. The temple was carved from white stone, its surface marked with glowing blue symbols. Only a bonded pair could enter the final chamber inside. Ryan and Sailari stood at the entrance dressed in ceremonial armor instead of silk. This was not a wedding. This was a rite of protection. Are you sure about this? Ryan asked. Sailari looked at him, her eyes filled with calm strength. This is not just about us anymore. This is about saving everything we love. They stepped into the chamber together. As they moved forward, the walls lit up. The air grew warm. A deep hum filled the space. At the center was the Verdari core stone, the heart of the planet's energy, glowing with green and blue light. Ryan placed his hand on it. Sailari did the same. The stone pulsed. It read their bond, their shared trust, their unity. Suddenly, vines from the walls moved toward them, not to harm, but to connect. They wrapped softly around their arms, linking them together. Then everything went still. Far below, in a forgotten cave deep in the southern jungle, the ground began to crack. A giant eye opened. The Eorath had awakened. Back at the temple, the wall shook. The glowing stone flickered. Sailari gasped. It's not enough. Ryan clenched his jaw. Then we give it more. Without thinking, he pulled out the core blade. Its light flared as he held it high. The vines around them tightened, and then the sword sank into the center of the stone. There was a flash of white light, then silence. When Ryan and Sailari opened their eyes, they stood in a strange vision. A glowing green forest. Everything was peaceful. At the center stood a tall figure made of vines and light. I am the spirit of Verdaria, the figure spoke. The bond is true, but the storm is not over. One of the Eorath is rising. You must stop it, or your world will fall. Ryan stepped forward. Tell us how. The spirit pointed to the east. The ruined spire of Korthal. That is where the beast will rise. You must go there and face it together. The light faded. They were back in the chamber. The stone was quiet. The vines had let go. Ryan turned to Sailari. "We have a direction," she nodded. "Then let's end this before it begins." Outside the palace, ships were being prepared. Warriors sharpened their weapons. Engineers worked on old machines built for war. But it wasn't an army that would face the danger. It was the bonded pair, the human and the alien princess, chosen not by power, but by courage. As Ryan stepped onto the launch ship with Sailari, beside him he looked once more at the city of Verdaria. "Let's save your world," he whispered. She looked at him and said, "No. Let's save our world." The sky above Verdaria turned dark as thick clouds gathered from the east. Lightning flashed in the distance. People watched from their homes with worry in their eyes. Everyone had heard the same news. One of the ancient Eorath had awakened. But only 2 souls dared to face it directly. Ryan sat inside the cockpit of the royal airship, watching the jungle pass beneath them. Beside him sat Princess Sailari, now dressed in armor shaped like glowing leaves, her face calm but focused. "How far until we reach the spire?" Ryan asked. "Not long," she replied. "Korthal is just beyond that mountain ridge. That's where the vision said it would rise." Ryan looked down at the sword beside him, the Verdari core blade. Its light flickered, as if it already sensed the battle ahead. He turned to Sailari. "Do you think we really stand a chance?" She looked at him gently. "I think the world chose us for a reason, and I believe in you." Her words gave him strength. The ruined spire of Korthal stood like a broken tooth sticking out of the land. Once a temple, now it was just a pile of ancient stone and moss. But the ground around it cracked and trembled. Green mist poured from the cracks. A deep sound, like something breathing, echoed through the jungle. The airship landed on a flat rock nearby. Ryan and Sailari stepped out together. The air was heavy. Suddenly the earth split open. A massive shape rose from the ground, covered in stone, vines, and glowing cracks. It stood on 2 legs, taller than the spire, with long arms, and a face made of twisted bark. Its eyes were like burning suns. The Eorath had arrived. Ryan took a step back. "It's even bigger than the vision." Sailari raised her staff. "Then we must be even braver than we thought." The Eorath let out a deep roar that shook the trees. It swung one arm and shattered part of the mountain ridge. Boulders rolled toward the airship, but Ryan leapt in front of them and activated a shield. The impact knocked him to the ground, but he stood back up quickly. "We can't fight it with strength," he shouted. "We need to outsmart it." Sailari nodded. "Its energy comes from the land. If we disconnect it from the ground, it will weaken." Ryan thought fast. "What if I overload the core blade inside one of the ancient energy roots?" She looked at him. "It could work, but it would take all of its power." Ryan held the sword tight. "Then it's worth the risk." While Sailari distracted the Eorath with glowing waves of energy from her staff, Ryan ran across the crumbling ground toward a cracked vine root. He stabbed the core blade into the center. The blade began to glow bright. The ground trembled. The Eorath let out a loud cry. Its glowing cracks started to dim. "It's working!" Sailari shouted. But the beast turned and stomped toward Ryan, now sensing the danger. Rocks flew. Trees snapped. It raised one massive arm to crush him. Sailari screamed, "Ryan!" But Ryan didn't run. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a small device. A power amplifier he built when he first arrived. He attached it to the sword and activated it. The core blade exploded in light. A massive pulse of green energy shot upward, hitting the Eorath directly in the chest. The beast stumbled, roared, and began to collapse. It fell backward into the cracked earth, breaking apart into light and dust. Silence returned. Only the wind whispered through the jungle now. Sailari ran to Ryan, who was lying on the ground, covered in dirt and small cuts. He was breathing but tired. She helped him sit up. "You did it." He looked at her, smiling weakly. "We did it." She held his hand. "You've saved our world, not because of law or duty, but because you chose to." He smiled. "I didn't marry you to survive anymore. I married you because I wanted to." Sailari blushed slightly and leaned her forehead against his. "Then let's lead together." Not as strangers, not as symbols, but as partners. Ryan nodded. I like the sound of that. When they returned to Verdaria, the people welcomed them as heroes. Children held flowers. Old ones cried. Even the guards who once doubted Ryan now bowed deeply. The king stood waiting, pride in his eyes. The bond is complete, he said. The legend is true, and you have written a new chapter for our people. Ryan looked at Sailari. A chapter that begins today. Weeks passed. Verdaria began to heal. The broken walls were rebuilt. New gardens grew where the ground had cracked. The fear of the Eorath faded into memory. Ryan became more than a prince. He became a symbol of change. He helped upgrade the city's technology using ideas from Earth. He taught children how to solve problems instead of fight them. He stood beside Sailari during every council meeting, not just as a guest, but as an equal. And at night, when the stars returned, Ryan and Sailari would walk through the gardens hand in hand, talking about their past and dreaming of the future. One evening, as the twin moons rose, Sailari looked up at him. Do you ever miss Earth? He smiled. Sometimes. But being here with you, building a life, saving a world, I think I found something better. She leaned against his shoulder. So did I. And under the peaceful sky of Verdaria, two hearts, once worlds apart, now beat as one.